You know, I notice that even on a 3-day holiday, like 4th of July is, they kind of run out of steam on the 3rd day. You know, they stay up late on Friday, they stay up late. And by go ahead. And thank you. And by Sunday morning, they're pretty worn out. The devotees are energized and they're exhausted. This is off the track, but it's kind of sweet. We used to do book distribution in Michigan. And we would do we'd do malls in the morning. We'd do the county fair. There was always a county fair, at least in the summertime, in one of the local counties. And then we'd do a drive-in movie theater on the way back. We'd be out Friday night, Saturday night till 10 o'clock. Get home sometimes 10:30, 11. And I remember there was we were driving back to the temple on the highway, and there was a car that had pulled over. And so we thought maybe he had some automotive problem or something. You know, and as fellow travelers on the road, the etiquette in those days was that you stopped and helped if you were the first one to. So we pulled over. And naturally, we thought, well, let's try to give them a book if they're okay, you know? And the person was okay. They were just changing drivers. But the guy couldn't believe it. He said, how many of you are there? Because he'd happened to meet a devotee at the mall. He met a devotee at the county fair. He met a devotee at the drive-in movie. He said, when I get home for an evening snack, one of you guys is going to jump out of the fridge. He couldn't believe it. He bought a book just because he couldn't believe it. He said, I got to buy a book to get rid of you guys, you know. It was quite blissful. All glories to the Vaishnavas. I forget who it was, but they said they've got to ultimately surrender because the devotees are not going to give up. They're going to keep meeting devotees and meeting devotees until they finally surrender. There's no other way out of here. They're like a sock stuck in the dryer. They're just going to keep going around and around on the wheel of samsara till they surrender to Krishna. Okay, where are we going to start, Ram? You usually start too high. Do we have any other kartals? These are clinkers. We don't have any other kartals in the basket? Our Ananda Vrindavan has gone off to who knows where. Yeah, bring them. Those sound better. Thanks. Oh, that's interesting. All right, let's try those. Aren't those the ones I just had? All right, thank you very much. Yeah, those are much better. They used to hand hammer these. Yeah. When you would get cartels from Navadvip, they would mold them. These are just cast into a mold. But they used to hammer them, and it made a really nice sound. But it's too much labor now. They're too... Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Behari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Behari Gopijana Balava Girivanadadi Gopijana Balava Girivanadadi Jasodanandana Bhajajana Ranjana Jasodanandana Bhajajana Ranjana Jamun Tiravanachari Jamun Tiravanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Behari Gopijana Balava Girivanadari Jasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tiravanachari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari, Jai Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari. Jai Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pariba Jakacharya Sataja Shishmadis Divine Grace Abhay Charan Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki, Anantakota Vaishnava Brinda Ki, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki, Prem Shri Gohor Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadhar Shiva Sari Gaur Bhakta Brinda Ki, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki, Vrindavan Dham Ki, Mathura Dham Ki, Dwarka Dham Ki, Navadip Dham Ki, Jamuna Mai Ki, Ganga Mai Ki, Tulsi Maharani Ki, Bhakti Devi Ki, Sambheda Bhakti Vinda Ki, Srila Prabhupada Ki, Say Radha Giridhari Ki, Shri Krishna Sankirtana Jaga Ki, Go Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the lotus feet of Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. Now, well, I guess we'll do it this way. We should be on verse 8, chapter 17? 16. And we're on text. Help me out. 25. All right, let's see. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Krishna Swadamo Bhagate Dhammaganadi Bisaha Kalaunda Sadashamesha Paranako Nado Data Narayana Namaskitcha Naram Chaivam Narotama Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudirayat. The Bhagavatam is as brilliant as the sun, is arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna to his own abode, accompanied with knowledge, religion, etc. Persons who have lost their vision through the dense darkness of the age of Kali shall get light out of this Purana. Before beginning our study of the Srimad Bhagavatam, we should first offer our respects to the personality of God and Narayan, the Narayan Rishi, the supremmost human being, the goddess of learning, Mother Saraswati, the author, Srila Vyasadeva, and my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada. Okay? Now, let's see. Palgunasyam Malay Pakshe Dvarasaham Payo Vratam Archayed Arvindaksham Bhaktya Paramayan Vita Palgunasya Malay Pakshe Dvadasaham Payovritam Archayet Aravindaksham Bhaktya Paramayan Vita Palgunasya Malay Pakshe Dvadasaham Payovritam Archayet Aravindaksham Bhaktya Paramayan Vita Palgunasya Malay Pakshe Dvadasaham Payovritam Archayet Aravindaksham Bhaktya Paramayan Vita Palgunyasamale Vakshe Dvadasaham Payovritam Archayet Aravindaksham Bhaktya Paramadanvita Palguna Yasmale Bhakshe Vaishnavis Dvadasaham Payovritam Archayet Aravindaksham Bhaktya Paramayan Vita Palgunasya Malay. Of the month of Palgun, February and March. Amale, during the bright Pakshe fortnight. That's when the moon is waxing and getting bigger, yeah. Dvadasaham for 12 days, ending with Devadasi, the day after Ekadasi. Payavratam, accepting the vow of taking only milk. Archayat, one should worship. Aravindaksham, the lotus-eyed Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhaktya, with devotion. Paramaya, unalloyed. Anvita, surcharged. On the bright fortnight of the month of Phalgun, February and March, for 12 days ending with Devadasi, one should observe the vow of subsisting only on milk and should worship the lotus-eyed Supreme Personality of Godhead with all devotion. All you say. In the bright fortnight of the month of Phalgun, February and March, for 12 days ending with Devadasi, one should observe the vow of subsisting only on milk and should worship the lotus-eyed Supreme Personality of Godhead with all devotion. Purport. Worshipping the Supreme Lord Vishnu with devotion means following Archana Marg. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Padasevanam Archanam Bandhanam Dasyam Sakyam Atmanivedam. Those are the 9 processes of devotional service from Prahlad. One should install the deity of Lord Vishnu or Krishna, worship him nicely by dressing him, decorating with flower garlands, and offering him all kinds of fruits, flowers, and cooked food, nicely prepared with ghee, sugar, and grains. One should also offer a flame, incense, and so on, while ringing a bell as prescribed. This is called worship of the Lord. Here it is recommended that one observe the vow of subsisting only by drinking milk. This is called Payovrata. As we generally perform devotional service on Ekadasi by not eating grains, it is generally recommended that on Devadasi one not consume anything but milk. Payovrata and Archana devotional service to the Supreme Lord should be performed with a pure devotional attitude, bhaktya. Without bhakti, one cannot worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhaktyamam abhijananti yavan yaschasmi tattvata, from Bhagavad Gita 1855. One who wants to know the Supreme Personality of Godhead and be directly connected with him, knowing what he wants to eat and how he is satisfied, one must take to the process of devotional service. If one wants to know, it actually says. He is to know what he wants to eat and how he's satisfied, one must take the process of bhakti. As recommended here also, bhaktya paramayanvita. One should be surcharged with unalloyed devotion. Om Gana Tamarandasya Gana Gana Salakaya Chakshushan Militan Gina Tazare Shri Gurave Namaha. So I was thinking of a couple different things. I read a couple things. So I read the chapters from last week, the verses, and then I read all the chapters to the end of this, to Vaman's appearance and Bali Maharaj being bound. So I'm going to mention a couple different points. But there is a common theme. They know that the world, they like to say, of course things are changing, that there's laws. Of course, as soon as we say there's laws other than Dravida, there is a natural subsequent question. There's Heisenberg's law of gas theory, there's this law, there's so many laws, there's laws of physics, chemistry. I was listening to a tape, and the man is a mining engineer. He goes down and he's talking to Prabhupada about the different laws that, how much stress and how much structure and weight the mine shaft can hold and what the quality of the air is. And he goes on for a while. And Prabhupada said, "Oh, so you were trained to be a rat." Rats live in a hole. So you're living deep down in the earth and you're making sure the air quality is proper and your tunnel doesn't collapse. So you're trained as a rat. So the man didn't have much to say after that. He was trying to impress Prabhupada. So they know that this world is operating by laws. There's laws of gravity. There's so many things. Now, what is the natural question to ask when they talk about laws? Yeah, if there's laws, then it's natural that there's a lawmaker. But they just say that's just the way it is. There's natural phenomena, and we're simply observing and defining the laws that it operates by. So they, if you follow the laws, I guess it's the law of inertia, that if you're driving on ice and you start to skid, you don't hit the brakes, because that'll just send you into a spin. You turn into the way the car is sliding a little, and that'll get you some traction, and you can get back out of your skid. So just to operate, so that the world, the premise is that the world is a machine. And we're going to learn all the different laws. They have their atom smashers. An atom smasher, there's one in upstate New York. There's not a whole lot of them around. They're very expensive. There's one in the border between France and Switzerland. And this, I swear to you, I could not make this up if I wanted to. The thing costs billions of dollars. And it's like if I were to take two cars and send them in the opposite direction around a track and smash them into each other. And then pick up the hubcap. There'd be debris from where they'd smashed into each other. So there'd be some hubcap, there'd be a steering column, there'd be the backs. And if I tried to understand the gas combustion engine, by picking through the debris left over from a 90-mile-an-hour collision. It's an interesting premise. But that's their idea. And ultimately, we'll figure out, it's like perverse Sankhya Yoga. That, this rests upon this. Neti, neti, neti. Is the basic premise of Sankhya Yoga. This depends on this. Well, that's not the real cause. That was caused by this. And that was caused by this. And they're trying to find, what are they trying to find? What is the cause of all causes? And they're breaking it down to smaller and smaller pieces. There used to be elements, then there was molecules, smaller, then atoms are smaller, then there's subatomic. Now they're down to, I don't know what they're down to. What are the latest quarks and subatomic, which they've found, hello there, where they're atom smashers. What I was going to say, I actually have another point, but the first atom smasher they turned on in America, no, it was the one in France, border of France, and billions of dollars to build this thing. And it's a huge track underground. It's a big deal. They turned it on and it fritzed out. You know why? Billions of dollars, years to make. Some worker, when they were installing the thing, left a loaf of French bread on the track, and it blew the whole thing out. Billions of dollars. And a loaf of French bread. Fritz the whole thing. So, I mean, we have to, what'd you say? Yeah. There, you know, where are we actually getting this stuff? That, oh, well, there's no God, there's no lawmaker, it's all running on by random laws of physics, and there's quarks, and there's this and that, and we've found the secret of life. This right up here, Stephen Miller is the guy who simulated amino acids, you know, with a test tube and with some solution, a simulation of the prebiotic soup, so they say. And they sent, you know, electrical current through it, which is supposed to simulate electrical storm in the prebiotic soup at the genesis of life. And they made amino acid, simulated, you know. Now, amino acid, you've got to go from amino acid to proteins, from proteins to, you know, so many steps. It's like if I were to give, you know, if I were to give you a hubcap and say, here's a Mercedes, are you going to accept that as a Mercedes? There's a whole lot of missing parts, my friend. So, fine, he simulated amino acids. Even you accept that. Where did all the prebiotic soup come from? And where did the electricity, because they're saying a lightning bolt struck the prebiotic soup, and from that life evolved. Well, where'd the prebiotic soup come from? Where'd the electricity come from? You know, help me out here. And there's so many steps, you know, anyway, it just, and we're supposed to swallow this stuff? There used to be something called Radio Ram. You know, do you remember Radio Ram by the devotees? It was fantastic. Yeah, it was pretty funny, actually. So they do a parody on prebiotics. It's a restaurant is opening. And they're laying out, you know, before the restaurant opens, they lay out all the items on the menu. And one of them is prebiotic soup. They said, what's the recipe? We don't know. Well, where does it come from? Nobody knows. You know? And they say, but the students keep lapping it up. You know, think about it for a moment. There's a famous letter by Prabhupada. And if you have not read Prabhupada's letters book. Take the time, you know, at night before you take rest, you got a little hot milk or a little prasadam. Take 15, 20 minutes and read your way through Prabhupada's letters book over time. There's so much nectar in there. So this lady writes, it could have been a man, don't save me all the emails, but a person, okay, is that non-gender? Okay, so a person, devotee, wrote to Srila Prabhupada with about, I don't know, 15, 20 questions about Tulsi Devi. And Prabhupada answered the first 6. Out of the 15, he answered 6, the most important ones. And then he wrote, for your other questions, use your common sense. And the knowing us oh so well, Prabhupada said, and if you don't have common sense, ask someone who does. He pretty well covered it. So use your common sense. Everything, we talk about Garbhodakshai Vishnu and Karanodakshai Vishnu, Mahavishnu. And we say that he, from his body, no, maybe I've got it up. We're talking about Garbhodakshai Vishnu, who fills up the universe half full of water and then lies down on it. That's Garbhodakshai Vishnu. Yeah, that's Garbhodakshai Vishnu. So that's a pretty fantastic story. I'll admit it. I mean, we live in an amazing universe. It should be amazing. But we, from our body, when we perspire, we create a couple ounces of water. So why can't Krishna, with a, unimaginable sized body, create the Garbhodak ocean and then lie down on it? It's not completely unreasonable. It's a lot more unreasonable to believe that where'd the prebiotic soup come from? What caused the Big Bang? Shouldn't you ask? They tell you if you're working in a factory, if you're the manager of a factory, a big, it's the widget factory. It's got all these machines. If you want to understand it, how it's operating, ask why 5 times. It's a basic principle of management. The car smashed. Well, there's a hole in the wall. There was a hole in the back hall. Well, why? Where'd the hole come? It wasn't there yesterday. Where did it come from? Well, and I won't mention the devotee's name, but it turns out by asking why 5 times, the devotee was trying to stretch their back. They had a pain in their back. So they were doing some isometric, pushing against something, exercises, and they pushed their back through the drywall. It was a cause. There was a person. They were hoping I wouldn't notice and ask why 5 times and figure out it was them. So this world operates like a machine. And we don't argue at that point. We accept there's so many laws. And if you understand the law, if you break it down into tiny pieces with your atom smasher, you'll figure out how it all works. And then you can control it. You'll conquer nature. How is that working out for them with climate control? And they're conquering nature. What's actually happening? I mean, what's happening to the seasons? What's happening to the weather? Are they doing a good job of controlling it? Have they got it all worked out? And they're progressively resolving everything and getting a handle on material nature? Is that your experience? I mean, they're just making, the more they, if you put a monkey, what do they call it? A monkey wrench, or if you're riding a bicycle and you put a stick in the spokes, what happens? Does that work out well? So you got a bunch of monkeys. Prabhupada actually said, what evolution? They're still monkeys. Prabhupada was not impressed. Prabhupada said, your ancestors may be monkeys. He said, my ancestors, the great sages of Vedic India. But you got a bunch of monkeys dickering around, and they're pulling. You can picture a big factory, all the machinery, and you got a couple monkeys in there pulling on this and pushing that and jiggering this. How's it all going to work out? So they're not going to conquer it. They're not going to figure it out. But here it's describing in this Payovrata that is a machine, and if you approach it properly, you can get the right result. But Kasyapa is making the point that the devotees lose and the materialists lose. Everyone loses something in this material nature. What did Aditi lose? What is the genesis for the cause of this whole following the Payovrata and the whole thing? What happened? What's the event? Nobody knows?
The demons conquered the sons of Aditi.
Yeah, the Asuras, the Devas had lost their kingdom. Her sons were all pushed out, and they'd all lost. So they're trying to get it back. The Kasyapa first gave her advice. Said, it doesn't really matter. What you really need to do is please Krishna. That will solve everything. But she couldn't hear it. When people are attached, she wanted her kingdom back, with a kingdom back for her sons. Maternal love and affection and all that. So there's a couple principles here. We need to hear from someone who knows. Does anyone know tadvidhi panipatena pariprashnena sevadya upadekshanti te jnana? What is the last line of that cornerstone verse other than Dravida Prabhu? What did you say? And what does that line mean? Tattvadarshanaha? You need to find someone who has seen the truth. Everybody you have to be serious. First off, you have to be serious. You have to ask why 5 times, figure out if there's law, there's a lawmaker. It's not just happening by chance. There's a purpose. It's obviously designed. They do, and I've used it so many times, I'm going to use it again. They've got the archaeologists, and they're always digging around. They're doing an archaeological dig, and they're always looking at pot shards, pieces of broken pottery. And they put it together and they say, oh, it was a funeral urn. It was used for holding ashes. They must mean that they had some religious system. It must, and they do a whole speculation. They pull out one bone and they say it's a rib. I remember taking my daughter to the University of USC Archaeological Museum. It's by the La Brea tar pits where all these dinosaurs fell in the time. They've got all the bones. And they've got this dinosaur. He's as big as this room. You know how many actual bones they have to make that thing? 1 rib bone. Yeah, and you know what they found out later on? It was a lady's femur. That's the bone from, you know. So, I mean, some of it they've got right. I'm not trying to say it's all, you know, but I'm saying it's such speculation. If I'm walking up a path, okay, I'm walking up a hill, and picture the vantage point. I can't see beyond the bush or the boulder. I can't see very far ahead of me, right? If I go this way, maybe there's a patch of cactus. If I go this way, maybe I fall off a cliff. If I go this way, that way, maybe there's a coiled rattlesnake. I don't know, because I can't see very far. If I'm at the top of the hill looking down from the vantage point of seeing the truth, being able to look down and see the whole thing, I could say, hey, don't go that way, go this way. Well, that makes the path longer. This is a shortcut. Yeah, it's the shortcut that leads right into a ravine where the rattlesnakes are living. I don't know that from my vantage point, but for someone's higher, broader, who has seen the truth, they can give me direction. If I have guru, if I have shastra, if I have sadhus, I can traverse the machine of this material nature. I know what to do and what not to do. When Krishna in Bhagavad Gita is describing the divine and demonic nature, it says the demonic don't know what to do and what not to do. So there are a bunch of monkeys in there dickering around with everything, and they're just making it worse. So Daksha heard from Kasyapa. Now the last thing, you know, there's a lot to cover in here because it's talking about Archana, and we don't have time. But Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur makes a very blissful analogy. And it's describing, you know, how to worship. There's a process for worshiping Krishna. There was a devotee, Nayana Baram, Dravida Prabhu. You remember Nayana Baram? Yeah, he was quite an eccentric character. In Detroit, he got the idea of instead of offering the flower, I mean, there's a process. Jugala Kishore made those nice videos of how, you know, you set up the RT tray and how, you know, how to do things. There's a way of doing things. So there's what you offer for arti. Remind me, I want to get back to Sudam, and we'll wrap up with that. So there's a process, and if you follow the process, you get the result. So one of the things we offer is a nice flower. So Nayana Baram had the bright idea of instead of offering a flower, why not offer one of those 4th of July sparklers? You know what I'm talking about? The little, makes a sparkler. So he did it. And Govardhan wasn't quite sure. Govardhan was our blissful temple president. And he wasn't quite sure about, you know, whether that was bona fide. Prabhupada happened to visit. Prabhupada was coming on his summer tour across America. And Govardhan asked Prabhupada. Prabhupada said, no, it should smell nice. You know, it shouldn't smell like gunpowder. You're offering a flower. It should be fragrant. It should smell nice. And there's a process, and process for pleasing Krishna. You offer a bell, there should be some music. So you can offer a bell. It makes a nice, sweet sound. There's a way of doing it, of pleasing Krishna. But what is the ultimate? It's described like salt. If you, Prema Priya Radhika, there's many to Ram Bhakti Prabhu. I'm sure I've offended somebody by forgetting them. Make a nice prasadam. There's a formula. What if you try to cook a feast and you forget salt? How will it turn out? No salt. Like my mom's cooking. It has no life. It has no juice. It has no flavor. You add salt, it brings out the ras, the taste, the flavor of the thing. So you can do all the processes properly. But if there's not bhakti, you can toss in a sparkler, you can be ringing a bell, you can have a Shanai band, and it gives the example, Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, of Sudama. What did Sudam Brahmana take to Dwarka when he went to see Krishna? Oh, come on. He took chipped rice. Is chipped rice a very fancy offering? It's like the most basic thing you can offer. You know, you soak it in a little milk or yogurt or in some, put it in a veg to brighten it up, you know. So, and it was old, he describes. It was old and had a bad taste. And so he went to Dwarka, went to see Krishna in Dwarka, and he saw all the opulence, and Krishna was, you know, and he was too embarrassed to offer it to Krishna. But Krishna, he wasn't ringing a bell, he didn't follow all the process of Achman, you know, for worshiping Krishna. He didn't know, he didn't have it, he didn't have the resources. But because it was saturated with bhakti, Krishna snapped it, you know, snatched it, and he took one hand, after taking one palmful of this chipped rice offered with love, what did Rukmini do? Anyone know, other than Dravida? Stopped him. Why? Anyone know why she stopped him? Okay, on the mundane level, or there's an esoteric and exoteric. On the exoteric, on the surface level, that, you know, it's the Christians, you know, it's old, stale, chipped rice, don't take anymore. You've accepted his offering. But does anyone know the esoteric reason, the internal reason, other than Dravida? Other than Ram? Okay, Ram.
You would be more indebted.
Yeah, because the goddess of fortune, Rukmini, one palmful, I might be able to reciprocate with your indebtedness, with all my opulence as the goddess of fortune. But you take Krishna takes two palmfuls of that chipped rice, I won't even be able to reciprocate. I can't exchange. I can't make a fair exchange because it's so much. So the real point is to learn to love Krishna and to offer. You know, you can understand how everything operates. You can understand the, you know, from, what do they say in the Bible? Alpha to Omega, from the beginning to the end. But if you don't offer with love and devotion, Krishna's not attracted, and then otherwise, what's the use? It's like cooking without salt or cooking without fire. What's the use? Okay, we can end there. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Prabhu.